All right.
Let's
John Fox is going to be coming out at Dove Valley shortly. We're going to go live to Dove Valley and listen to what the head coach has to say. But before that, let's you and I talk a little bit about
what we saw. I haven't put my feet on the table
yet. Go for it. We're in the basement, man. Let me move your Coke so you don't spill it. Do I sound like my mother? Let me move your Coke so
I've lost 42 pounds. My mother, every time I talk to her and I tell her how much I've lost, she goes, "Son, you don't lose it too fast." And I said, "Mother, who told you that?" "Well, somebody once told me, you don't want to lose it too fast." I said, "The doctors tell me." 3 doctors I've gone to said, "Oh, God, that's great. You're losing it really fast. That's great. Keep it up." But my mother says, "You don't want to lose it too fast." Somebody
You know
told
what that's
her
like? That's like, don't eat before you go swimming. Old wives' tales. All right, let's talk some Broncos. That game was a mess last night. It was annoying.
Do you remember me saying to you yesterday?
It was a very uncomfortable game to watch.
I said this is going to be an ugly game. Do
you
remember I said
you were
that?
absolutely
I was
right.
wrong. I finally picked the Broncos, but I never
was. And that was without assuming it would rain.
And I was never comfortable with that pick and I should have just kept my mouth shut because you knew that during the week my early belief was Cincinnati was going to win the game. It was as ugly as it could be on both sides. That wasn't a picturesque game. Cincinnati's excited. They're in the playoffs. It's in the playoffs. The Broncos, as I've told you, nothing's changed. Nothing changed.
Well, except
They're
for
the number
one thing.
2 seed.
What?
They're the
Except
number
for
2
one
seed.
thing. If they lose to Oakland, and Oakland's won. Hold on a second. Oakland has won 3 of its last 5, and against some decent teams. If they lose to Oakland, then they could end up the 3rd seed and not have a bye. It's a possibility. A win last night is important because it would have assured them of the number 2 seed. They're not assured of that right now. Cincinnati could sneak past them now.
Am I still in view over here with you guys?
No, you're
Good.
Totally off camera.
I want to be off camera.
Why?
I want to tell you as
we're
God.
a visual
I'm
medium.
Now speaking
Get
to
your
you
ass
as God.
on camera.
I want to speak to you as God.
As God?
God is saying to you one of 2 things. They're not going to lose to Oakland. But let's say for a moment, since you are such a cloudy weather person,
I'm just being a realist.
If they lose to Oakland, they don't deserve to be anything.
No, that's true.
Really? I mean, are they going to win? If they lose at home to Oakland, do you really think this is a team that's going to factor in the playoffs? No. That team last night didn't look good.
No, they didn't.
That team,
a lot of problems.
That team was a problem. Remember yesterday, our friend in Cincinnati telling us that the special teams is where Cincinnati would have an edge?
And boy, they did.
On both sides. We got Barth Connor, or Connor Barth, whatever his name is, and he misses a chip shot field goal. Now we got 2 kickers on the team that can't make chip shot field goals.
It was a 49-yarder. It wasn't a chip shot.
Sorry, I'm in your shot. I know you
He should have hit it, but it wasn't a chip shot.
I am sitting here telling you, though, that if they lose to Oakland, if you're right, and you go, oh, then they're the 3rd seed. Well, they deserve to be the 3rd seed. They deserve to go home, is what they deserve if they lose to Oakland.
Well, you could be right. But
this was a setup game, Les. This was a setup game. But you're going to get to it, and we will get to it. Peyton Manning didn't play well. I mean, he threw 4 interceptions. And if Peyton Manning throws no interceptions, they win the game.
They weren't even just interceptions. They were bad interceptions. They were poorly thrown balls that had no zip on them, too much air under them, wobbly, and into double coverage. I mean, that's what worries me about Peyton. He just didn't look good, and he hasn't looked good since the Miami game. And I'm wondering what the hell's going on there, Woodry? Woodrow? Woodry? Your good friends call you Woodry,
right? My good friends don't call me because I don't want to talk to them. I have another important question.
Okay.
Because we've been here now in your basement for 2 weeks. Why is it that you got all this crap piled up over here? Don't you have a storage room somewhere? You have it in your I mean, they're people. There are people and there's things and there's homeless people over here that you have.
It's a basement.
And that we have the assets.
We live here.
We have the assets that hang out with us. You know what?
That's what Woody calls the interns.
Assets.
The assets. Yeah.
No, they're assets.
All right, let's get back to Peyton.
Yes, we'll be serious. You know, how can you sit here though? How can we sit here? It's Christmas. Yeah, let's get angry.
I don't want to get angry. I just want to figure out what the hell's going on with him? Because in the third quarter, he looked like a 28-year-old Peyton. In the fourth quarter, he looked like a 78-year-old Peyton.
Okay, let's go. Can I go back a week with you?
Yeah,
And
sure.
what did I say to you? We had a discussion one day, should Peyton play in the game? And I said, no. Wouldn't they be better off today if they had rested their starters last night?
Well, yeah, but that's Monday morning quarterbacking.
No, I
Or in
said it
this
last.
case,
It's not.
Tuesday morning quarterbacking.
It was Tuesday of last week when I said, don't play him, because I had gone and figured out, Les, that game didn't mean anything.
All right, well,
When the season's
Look,
over, you
we're
will
just-
you
we're-
will say to me, Woody, you were right, which you don't want to ever do. Woody, you were right.
if I believe you're right, I'll tell you you're right. But Woody, there was
Oh,
still
I
stuff
picked-
at stake.
I picked
there
him to
were
beat-
still look. Let's just agree to disagree on this point, okay? You believe, from a realistic standpoint, that the game didn't matter. I believed, from a technical standpoint, that it did because the number one seed was still at stake, which in fact it was. Now, you want to call me unrealistic? Go ahead, but that's why we play the games.
You're
to use a
unrealistic. You're
well-worn
unrealistic.
cliche.
You are unrealistic. There's no way New England was ever going to lose that game. Now New England doesn't have to play any of their players in Buffalo, so they're going to rest. They're going to get 2 weeks rest. They can play Brady.
That's
for
not
like-
necessarily a good thing. 2 weeks of rest. To me, that always scares the hell out of me.
Okay.
To me,
Everybody
that's
home,
too much rest.
and I'm gonna give
and
you the number
You lose your
again.
rhythm, and I don't like the idea of 2 weeks rest.
303.
So if New England wants to rest for 2 weeks, hey, take a month off. Go ahead. I think that's good.
We want you to call this number, 303-954-1290, and we also want you to call bullshit on Les Shapiro. So those are the two calls you got to make. That's what's important, and I'll do it until you do it. When the regular season's over, you're going to look back on this and say, Woody, you were right. Those games didn't mean anything. It was going to happen. New England showed up and Buffalo rolled over dead.
You'll have gotten lucky. You will
No,
have been
no.
right.
I've been doing
They
this.
had a
I
chance
am a
at the number one
professional.
seed, and you've got to go for it. You have to go
I got
for
a
it.
text
Peyton
last-
is healthy. He never sits when he's healthy, and he shouldn't sit because he's not looking good. They've got to get him back to being right.
How did
Last
they do
night was
that?
an opportunity to
How did
try
they
and do
do
that,
that?
and in the third quarter, it looked like he was getting back to being right. And then the fourth quarter, the whole thing freaking exploded. You think the rain had anything to do with it?
John Elway said, here, I'm going to tell you something John Elway said, not last night.
Yeah.
As a quarterback, I asked him once, what is what you hate the most? Is it the Oakland Raiders? Is it a game that doesn't mean anything? And he said to me, a damp football.
Oh, yeah.
A
He had
damp-
trouble throwing.
A damp
yeah.
football, he said, is heavy.
Well, how many
He said
times
it's
did
not-
we see him go into the East Coast in particular on rainy days? He had trouble throwing the ball. That was a mark of
And
his,
John
of his
Elway
career. Yeah.
admitted it during his career.
Yeah.
Well, Peyton will not own up to it, but I also think that I don't think it's a problem. I've had the gloves on. I don't think it's a problem in rain as it would have been during the John Elway period.
Because John never wore a glove.
Well, no, they didn't have those
Yeah,
kind
they
of
didn't have
gloves.
those
there.
type of gloves.
Guys wore stickum. Lester Hayes
John- yeah.
he
John
intercepted
never
a
wore
pass.
a glove, did he?
No,
I
never.
don't ever remember John
No
wearing a
quarterbacks
glove.
ever wore. I was trying to remember who the first quarterback was to wear a glove, and it seems to me like it was Roethlisberger. Remember that?
Might be, yeah.
Yeah, he would wear it on the right hand, and that's
Yeah.
kind of what Peyton Manning. So I think the rain at the last. I got a text with 3 minutes to go, and they said, "Do you think they can score twice?" They actually could have scored twice in the last 3 minutes.
Yeah.
I mean, they were in a position to score a touchdown. They probably should have kicked the field goal, gone ahead and kicked the field goal, and then tried to get the ball back.
Peyton
in
did
some
throw
way.
a touchdown pass. It was just to the other team.
Yeah. He had 2 pick sixes. I don't really want to pick on the defense too much. You look at 37 points.
They
and you go,
weren't very good.
They weren't very good.
But-
the special teams were awful.
Awful.
And
And
the
that-
offense was awful.
And
So-
that's why the Broncos were put in that position at the end of the game, because of special teams. Peyton deserves some blame, no doubt about it. He did not
deserves-
play well.
He's at the top of the. If you award game balls, maybe at the end of some games you should say you owe us a game ball.
Give back one of those balls we gave you last month. Yeah, special teams was just awful.
Well, how do you fix Peyton Manning? You said you asked the question.
don't-
I'm repeating it to you. You are an expert. You've been watching quarterbacks for 50 years.
All right, you want to know how? We both agree that the Oakland Raiders are a very bad team. Still, despite the fact they've won 3 of the last 5, they're a bad team.
But you think they have a chance to beat the Broncos?
No, I didn't say that.
What are you saying?
I
then?
said
What am I
as
not
long as they're
understanding?
playing a game, there's a chance that Oakland can win.
I don't know what that means. then.
That means that, well, it's the cliche, on any given Sunday.
Okay.
All right?
I
Did you
haven't-
see the movie?
Did
you see the movie?
What movie? I'm not
Any
paying
Given
attention.
Sunday. Al
Oh,
Pacino?
yeah, that was the worst movie, and he was the worst.
It was not a very
the
good
worst
movie.
coach. I watched like 20 minutes and I went, "This is bogus."
Cameron Diaz was an NFL owner. Really?